Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about this knife here. It is part of my vintage collection, Buck 110, and I'll be talking a little bit about this knife and also a little bit about how you can identify the age and the year on these things, and a little bit about the history of how they came about. Before I do that, though, I want to give a shout out to Doom Crew Outdoors. His information's up there right now. And if you've never checked his channel out, it's really cool. I was watching just this morning. It's an old video, but it was a really cool video that he did on rescaling a knife. So I really enjoy his channel. And why don't you check him out and see if you like it too. So without further ado, if you'd like to hear more about these Buck 110s, and this one in particular, go ahead and check out the video. Uh-oh.
What?
I think I need to fart.
Oh no, Papa has another frog in his butt.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Fortified Castle. Today we're going to be talking about my vintage buck here. It's the only Buck 110 I have. I've had a number of them in my past. I don't know why. I don't know what happens. You just get rid of them or something, or give them away. But that's a really cool collectible one. This is a '67 Impala here. Kind of a sporty sedan. That was really cool. That would have been around when you had this knife. And this is a '57 Bel Air. So what's really funny about this is you wouldn't be caught dead going on a date in this car because it was your dad and your mom's family car, right? But by 1970, that all changed, man. If you could get a hold of one of these in 1970, 75, soup up that engine, put you some mag wheels on it, man, you had a cool car. Isn't that funny how time changes things? One thing that really hasn't changed with time is this knife. So this was an awesome knife. It was a transitional knife. I'll explain that in a minute. But in 1964, Al Buck produces this knife, markets it to hunters, but it absolutely took off. It took the world by storm. Within a couple years, you weren't a knife company if you weren't copying this knife right here. That's how popular these knives were. Often imitated, never duplicated. These are just fantastic knives, and it was my grail knife. So when Buck came out with this knife in 1964, I was 5 years old. But by the time I was 10 in 1974, these knives were everybody wanted one. If you were a bad guy, this is a knife you carried because this was just a really stout weapon. If you were in the trades, you carried this because the blade was locking, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. If you were a hunter, you carried one of these, man. I mean, everybody and their brother wanted to get a hold of this knife. So, hi to all my viewers. Bonjour, privet, guten tag, hola, ciao, konnichiwa to my foreign viewers. And so what you have here is a lockback knife that is 5 inches long. That's a big knife. That's a big knife. And before I get into it, well, I'll tell you what, I'll do that later. So it's a 5-inch knife. You have a solid brass frame, and if you look close, these frames are integral. So your bolster and your liner is one piece. It makes for a really strong knife. You don't have, you're just pinning the sides together, but there's no no disconnect between the liner and the bolsters themselves. So it's really strong design on this knife. And then you have a lock back. So you look at it and you think it's a slip joint, but this is actually a back lock. And so the lock is all the way back here. And when you press on it, you can see it open up right there. And you have very positive, a lot of pressure there, good spring. Listen again. Crazy, crazy lockup on these. And the spring, I don't know whether, I don't have my lights close enough. If I can get you down in there. Let's try this. So, there you go. So that little piece of metal right there, you see a break in it? That is the spring right there. And that applies pressure to the lock. This whole thing is the lock. They can be really short if you have a front lock. They can be mid locks, and this is a back lock. So provides very positive lockup. And what's crazy is you hear to the snap on this knife, and this knife is hold on, let me figure it out. Okay, it's I forgot already. Oh man. Okay. So 74 to 24, right? What is that? 46 years? I don't know. I can't get my brain to think. Before you guys clock out of this video, I left a link in the description to the Buck 110 Collector Club. It's a great resource if you have these knives to figure out how old these knives are. It's very complicated, but it actually is very accurate too. So there's a lot of ways to figure out what the date of your knife is. I'm not going to go through all those because there's 1,000 different ways. And I know this is 73, 74. So you have this brass frame, nice, sleek, modern design on this, and that was what Buck was looking for. And it is a let me look here. Makassar, I think that's the name of it. Makassar ebony from Indonesia. So these are ebony scales on here. These are original. They're really tough. Ebony's a really hard wood, and so it's really tough. And 440C. So this is before they changed over to 425. This is a 440C blade right here, and you can see the logo. Let's see right here. You see the Buck. Let me try to get this in. Okay, let's do it again. Man, it's hard to keep this from unlocking. So there's the Buck and 2 dots. So that serves to date it. And there's a USA underneath it. It's hard to see, but there is a USA underneath there. You can see it, just the top of the USA. So this is a 2 dot. That was a change that came out in 73. And those dots designate, of course, changes in the construction of the knife. Also, it's a 2 pin. That's another way to identify these knives. So after 74, they went to 4 pins, and then they went back to 3 pins later. So this, because it's a 2 dot, they first did the 2 dots in 73, and then they went away from the 2 pins in 75 rather. I know I can date this knife to in 73, 74, and it's in pretty good shape. Even though it's worn, it's not ground completely down, and somebody took care of this knife really well. So I'm going to talk about the knife a little bit, and I'm going to be putting some pictures up there for you for historical reference. But if you look at the size of this, You see the case 6562 is actually a little bigger, just as sturdy. If you hold these two knives, this is a two-blade version, so it's about the same weight and it's just as sturdy. And these knives came out, these are traditional knives too. So these knives came out in 1922, this design. And the reason I say this knife is traditional, here's your Uncle Henry version, 227, I think this is. Let me check real quick. Yep, 227. This is a Schrade version of that. And the reason this is traditional is this was kind of the go-to hunting knife and trade knife up until 1964. And they're both big knives. They're heavy duty. They're really good knives. But this has a lock-in blade. And when Buck came out with this knife, he knew these existed, these other designs. But the thing about it was lock-in knives like these, big lock-in knives, were rare. There were only a few around during the 60s. And the ones that were around were slim and fragile. And so Buck changed the world by producing, a knife that could compete with this knife and locked. So it doesn't have two blades, but it locks. And man, that's a game changer. So if you're skinning an animal, using a knife like this, skinning an animal, this will do it. People have done it. I have done it with a knife similar to this. But you're constantly worried about that blade coming down too. You have to be really careful about what you're doing. With this knife, you don't. The blade is not going to shut on you, and you can just go to town. They get all wet and slippery, and so you really don't want to have to worry about your blade coming down. And that's what made the difference. So in a very short period of time, people in the trades, carpenters, construction workers, roofers, you name it, were using this. And I can remember my dad was in construction, and I can remember going to work, and most of the guys were carrying these lock-in blades. They were carrying these in a sheath. And that's another smart thing that Buck did, is he, when he issued this knife, they came with sheaths. So he knew it was going to be heavy, and people couldn't pocket it. And so the sheath came with the knife. You didn't have to worry about buying one or finding one. And that was a little bit of marketing genius on Buck's side. So within a short period of time, people were moving away from these. Now, these type of clasp knives, people still carry them. Hunters still carry them. But for the most part, most people went to these Buck knives and would prefer to have a lock-in blade. I'm in that category too. Like I said, this was always my grail knife, and I bought one as soon as I could buy one. So what else we got? When you're looking at the pins on these knives to figure out the age, this is not a pin. So this is in this model, this is stainless steel. It's called a rocker rivet, is what that's called. And so the pins are what secures the scales to the frame of the knife. So these are the only pins you count. That's another thing. So this is not a 3-pin. It's a 2-pin. You have 2 brass pins here. This is a rocker pin, something totally different. So the other ones will have additional pins over here. And that's one way you date them. Another one is through the spacer in the back. This is a stainless steel spacer, which is a 5th generation innovation, 5th version, I should say. And what else about this knife? Okay, I wanted to talk about the brass. So another thing about these knives that you'll see is the early ones were forged, and so on the early ones, even in a brand new specimen, you might have little pock marks in here from the forging of the brass. It just left, from air pockets in the brass. And in 73, they went to how do you say that? A sintered brass, powder metallurgy brass. Okay, so what the heck does that mean? So sintered is a mechanical process where you take a material that is porous, and through pressure and heat, you condense it into a solid. And so the powdered, they would take powdered brass, form them into a mold, and then put pressure and heat on them, and it made it a more consistent brass than the originals, which are all pot marked. And there's marks here, but this is from somebody pounding on the knife. It's not, you can see in the back, it's just solid. Looks really good. And so if you see that term, that's what they're talking about. It's just a manufacturing process to make a better knife. What else do I want to say about this? Boop, 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 boop. That's pretty much it. In 83, they redesigned the handle again and rounded the edges. You can see these are sharp angled edges on here. You can see that. So the knife that you have probably now has rounded edges, and that was a modification in 1983 that they adopted to kind of make them more sleek. So that's another way you can tell an old knife if it has these straight edges on it. It's going to be a pre-83 knife. So anyhow, great knife. I hope you found the video really informative. I don't know why I don't have more buck knives. I really don't. I've been looking at them, but dang, I bought 5 knives last week. I bought 3 this week already. And there's so many knives in so little time. Wow. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for your support. Bye.